Hey guys, so we're going to be doing something I've got my eye on, and I've actually done this before years ago. There's a big popular thing on TG, and it's been going on for literally like 10 years. What people would do is they would post an image, and people would then respond to that image and try to write a short story around it. I think it's great for world building and for DMs and to just, creative writing and just like get it thrown at your face.
Love a bit of creative writing, me.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these stories are very good. So if this is something that you like,
definitely let us know. Because I've got a lot of people messaging me recently saying they want more serious story times. And we normally do this big, long, serious story times on the text-speech channel. Mostly because we have a little difficulty recording with the child.
Baby.
Yeah, exactly, yep. Baby. But we can definitely do these. And I want to be able to do more serious stuff.
Because these are short. We can bang these out.
No issue.
Quite quickly. Yeah. So if it's something that you like, let us know down below.
Definitely let us know, because the problem is if
you don't let us know, then we don't know and we won't do it.
And generally speaking, these sort of videos don't do as well as the stuff we would normally do. So we really need feedback from you guys. Yeah. We actually do need feedback. But let's just get into it. We really hope you enjoy these stories. I think they're a lot of fun.
Neil's had been serving drinks at the Deep Sleep for over 15 years. Despite the economy going to shit, nature conspiring against the establishment if that recent rainfall was anything to go by, and the tax collectors at his door, Neil always pulled through. Though every year, on a simple Friday in the middle of May, he closed the bar for the entire night. The city didn't know, nor care to know, why he did this, but it disgruntled them all the same. Making sure the signs on the front door read "closed for the night," Neil sat down at the bar with 2 beers and a packet of cigarettes and simply waited. As the sun slowly crept down and down until the brilliant hues of sunset could be seen through the windows of the bar, Neil felt the comfortable coldness he had come to associate with these visits. "Hey, long time no see," a raspy voice said behind him. Sounded like fingers dragging across dry bones. Turning around, he saw the familiar sight of the Grim Reaper. Yet he seemed more dreary than normal. "Grab a seat. You look like shit." The Reaper lazily grabbed the bar stool and pulled himself to it, leaning heavily over the bar. "So, what's up?" Giving a heavy sigh, the skeleton in a dress started lighting a cigarette all the while. Another suicide today. Wasn't even a lonely man who had lost his spouse or family and nothing to lose. It was a young boy, no older than 12. 12, Neil. Just a small child and so much to live for. The Reaper's voice seeming to break, if even a little bit. Neil made a motion to pat the skeleton's back, but the Reaper pulled away, seemingly in range. He sat in the garage and suffocated while his dipshit parents were none the wiser. All because he wasn't doing well in school. The Slayer of Souls suddenly slammed the fist holding a cigarette down onto the bar, some ashes separating from the stick of carcinogen. Neil looked at his friend sadly, found another beer behind the counter, opened it, and offered a retort. "Fuck, man." Taking a long drag of his cigarette, he offered another beer to the skeleton. "I really should pay. It's on the house, like always." And with that, Neil let the conversation rest, only taking time to pull out more beers, and even some peanuts to munch on, just letting the night carry on. After another 2 hours of this cycle, the Reaper looked at his companion, smashed and near unconscious, and remembered why he liked the mortals so much. He listened to the grim fucking Reaper with so little as a blink of an eye, using their once-a-year meetings to get drunk with something beyond mortality. Standing up from his seat, the Reaper grabbed his scythe, pulled a blanket over the older-than-most man, and walked towards the door. Before he left, Death said aloud, as if his companion could hear him, "I'll reap you next year." To his surprise, Neil answered back, voice slurred in his drunken haze. "You've been trying for the last 50 years. Same time?" The Spectre gave the closest thing he could to a grin as he opened the door, because the two of them both knew what the other was thinking. "Thanks." "My mother warned me about your type," James murmured, a twisted half-smile plastered to his face. "Oh?" she purred, her voice low and amused. She shifted in the armchair languidly, her long, toned legs uncrossing with a whisper like stolen satin. "And what did dearest mother say about my type?" James gulped. The merest hint of a threat hovered over end of the ostensibly harmless question, the very tip of a razor-sharp claw concealed just beneath velvet fur. He tore his gaze from the woman's undoubted loveliness and mulled over the white wine he held for a moment. "Well," he began, taking a sip of the wine and focusing once more upon the woman. "She said that women who look like you, talk like you do, smell like you do, that they're not always what they appear to be, that they are made from the skins of kittens only to contain the poison beneath. They're trouble, in simpler words." He took another sip and continued to drink in the form of this beauty, lounging in her leather chair. Fine, almost sharp features framed piercing eyes of deep green that never left James's, much less striking eyes. A smile twitched at the corners of her mouth, though never parting the full, unpainted lips. It never touched the woman's eyes, certainly never crinkled the smooth skin around them, which held a dark mirth all their own, along with a touch of something else. A hunger, perhaps. James, his own filled with the same such, saw only lust in the deepest recesses of those piercing green eyes. The shrill, cautioning voice of his late mother was easily lost in the depth of his desire. The woman lifted herself lightly from the armchair and padded over to where James sat, hips swaying with every graceful step. "And what do I look like?" She leaned in towards him, her eyes never leaving his. "What do I sound like?" Her voice, it was barely a whisper. The skin on his neck turned to goose flesh where her warm breath touched it. "What do I smell like?" James's mind was awash with sensations, rooting him to the chair with an overpowering sense of lust and wonder. Desire. You look like, you sound like, you smell like desire. He wanted to speak the word, but the totality of her beauty held him in this thrall. Not even a gasp could escape him as her lips brushed against the corner of his mouth. He could resist no longer. His arms around her held her close as their lips met with a burning intensity no simple flame could match. He wanted to touch her, to taste her, to be one with this absolute ideal of womanly perfection. Pressed against her, James' adore filled his mind. He wanted more. More. His caresses turned to scratches, his kisses to bites, and she responded in kind. An odd, papery noise like torn rice paper accompanied a more feverish nip, and he pulled back, fearing he had hurt her. James stiffened as he took in the damage. He had clearly broken the skin of her bottom lip, but there was no blood, no flesh. But for the fact that there was a clear gap between the skin there was absolutely nothing. It was like a break between clouds filled with darkness. Fear returned James's thoughts to him as spikes of ice, but he was paralysed once more, not by beauty, but by terror, a terror of what lay beneath. She noticed the rigidness of his posture and drew back from him, those piercing green eyes once more locked upon his. "Something wrong?" the woman purred. An eerie chattering seemed to come from where he had bitten her, vibrating to the tune of her hushed words. The wrongness James felt exploded within him, and he realised that he was trembling. No, he was shaking violently, as much as he had been in the throes of passion just minutes before. Now he was under the sway of terror. "Don't you want to touch me, to taste me, to be one with me?" James only heard the chattering now, like dice striking the inside of his skull. He could take no more. He shut his eyes and gritted his teeth, using every little drop of will he had to wish this away. This thing before him. This thing that could not, did not possibly exist. "Don't you want to see me?" the voice continued, the purr harmonizing with the horrific chattering to scrape against James's nerves like icy razors. He held his eyes tightly shut, his wish for this not to be real, a mantra echoing in his head. The sound from before, that sound tearing rice paper, began anew, this time slow and even. He tried to drown it out with his inward chanting, but it ripped through his thoughts effortlessly. Just keeping his eyes shut had become an effort. He tried with all of his being to wish it away. It couldn't possibly be there. It wasn't there. And then it was gone. There was silence. James reached his hand out, hoping, praying. There would be nothing in front of him. Thin fingers grasped his hand just as the voice spoke once more. "Look at me." His eyes shot open. Taking in what was in front of him broke the paralysis, but only so far as to allow him to recoil further into his chair. The woman that had still remained, but only as far as the bottom half of her head. The rest of it damaged from her head in a long strip, as though the skin and hair had unwound from her to reveal a black nothingness beneath. "Am I not Desire, Jane?" The chattering was now louder, much louder, with more of the void revealed, but James's terror numbed him from the scraping agony of it. The creature pressed the end of the strip into his hand and began to twirl away from him, as gracefully as the woman had moved almost an eternity ago, unravelling more and more of her skin and revealing more and more of the void in the shape of the woman before. Something twitched upon the ribbon of skin and hair and clothing the woman had become, and he looked a little more closely than he had dared. 2 deep green dots, the piercing gaze that had stared at him before, still locked upon his eyes. A scream escaped him and he recoiled back into the chair. The creature emitted a sound like 1,000 broken teeth striking a stone floor. James clutched his head in his hands, the sound threatening to crack his skull. It took him a few seconds to realise the thing had been laughing. He wanted to close his eyes, to wish it all away once more, but something like an icy wind pressed against the underside of his chin and raised his head. The creature was crouched over the chair, one void finger lifting James's face to see what had once been its face, what was now just a gaping void. "Look at me, James. Look at Desire. Look and see." The chattering echoed in his thoughts as he stared, transfixed into the void. It grew louder with every passing second, turning every thought into nails, spikes and broken glass. He stared for an eternity, taking in the emptiness and turning it into his pain. He stared at nothing. Nothing but a speck of white appeared in the void. First one, then another and another. More and more until the black was seething with ivory dots, drawing closer to him. He tried to make out what they were, squinting to see just a little clearer. There was a certain sharpness about each dot, growing more evident as they drew closer. They swirled around him, nearer and nearer. They almost reminded him of teeth. James finally had a reason to struggle, but it was far too late. Ribbons and ribbons of teeth swarmed around him, turned red as they sawed away at everything he had been. One final scream escaped him, a scream cut short as the white turned to void once more, this time for good.
And that's how I met Megan.
Yeah, pretty much.
I couldn't help myself, guys, I'm sorry.
Hey guys, do you like models in your tabletop role-playing games? 'Cause we do too. Do you like having big bitty waifus on your table? 'Cause we do too. We got human biddies, we got lizard biddies, we got orc biddies, oni biddies, cat bussies. We've got everything you want at neckbeardia.co.uk.
Check the links down below, it helps us out a lot.
Sorry for interrupting the video, let's get on with the story. 90% of the world's population, gone, in an instant. Never did figure out why. Some folks say it was the rapture, others, aliens, if you believe that sort of thing. Hell, one guy I know thinks all those people were never here, and this is just the way the world always was. Maybe he's right. There's no one left alive who was around when it happened anyways, so he's going to argue with him. Me? I don't reckon it makes much of a difference how the world got this way. All that matters now is what we do with it. Folks that were left had a hell of a job to do. That many people go missing, things you take for granted start to fall apart. I'm talking transportation, communication, energy, networks, even the damn plumbing in a lot of areas. Society was gone, just like that. That kind of thing brings out the fear in a lot of people. Every single man, woman and child left alive was scared to death, with no clue how to go on, going to bed every night wondering if they'd even see tomorrow. Eventually people started coming together, forming communities, villages, that kind of thing. Suppose it's in our nature. Folks feel safer during a crisis knowing they're not alone. Of course not all the communities were full of what you'd call shining beacons of humanity. Some were downright rotten. I suppose as long as mankind's around, there'll always be those looking to take what others have got. Their money, their food, wives, children, land, even your life. I'm not sure what you do with another man's life, but some will take it all the same, just because they can. These gangs go around, raiding towns and villages, taking what they want. Usually don't leave much behind except a cloud of smoke. Then it's on to the next one. Eventually, folks got sick of living in fear. No matter where you put your roots down, you'd know it was only a matter of time before they found you. Some tried building better defences around their towns. It worked, to varying degrees. Usually the raiders would go find a way to get through eventually though. That all changed though. A couple of mechanical geniuses out west came up with the original idea. Two brothers, the way I heard it. A moving city. Hear about some raiders in the area? Just start her up and roll the whole town somewhere else. Took them a while to get the first one built and going, but it worked. They called it Prosperity. Said it would be a new hope for man's future. Can't argue with the results. Raiders tried real hard for a while to take Prosperity for themselves, but eventually they went back to chasing the easy prey, hitting small villages. Those two brothers didn't stop there though. They kept right on building. About 150 years later, here we are. Way I hear it, there's about 40 of these roaming about the country. Who knows how many across the rest of the world? Life started to look a little bit like it did in the old days. Just a bit more mobile, I guess. Kids playing in the street, going to school, people holding down regular jobs and not having to wonder where their next meal might come from. It's not all smooth sailing though. Machines like these have a lot of parts. Lots of ways something to go wrong. That's where I come in. I'm the head of maintenance aboard Prosperity 6. Not the fastest or the most advanced city roaming around these days, but it's home. I may not be able to build one of these beauties, but I can keep her running. When I've got the parts, that is. Right now, we're on our way up to the coast to meet up with Prosperity 15. Heard they've got some serious mechanical issues and they're short on hands to get her moving again. Me and my team will have those folks up and running soon enough. If we make it there in time, word is there's been a lot of bandit activity in the region. Whispers of a bandit king, bringing them all together. Looking for prosperity of his own. Let's hope we get there first. You see, this right here is why everyone thinks you're creepy, Steve. You go on and on about how golem crafting is a clean, ethical alternative to slavery and necromancy. Then you make them all look like prepubescent girls in fetish outfits. I swear there's something wrong with you. Look, do you want the close combat model or the range support one? I'm not going to sit here and listen to you preach at me all day. Just make your choice or let me get back to work. I'm not preaching. I'm trying to help you with your image problem. Your golems have saved our asses many times. At least 20, I think. But no one ever wants to keep them around after the battle. Hell, if we even let people see we have them, they start acting like we're the bad guys. Even though we just fought off a horde of orcs or whatever. If you just tone them down a little, things would be so much smoother. I bet you'd be able to sell one to every farmer and warehouse manager from here to the coast, instead of just us merc types. I will not compromise my art for something as meagre as wealth. These aren't just trinkets and devices. These are my little girls. I love each and every one, and will not reduce them to shambling boxes on legs just for the backward principle of a bunch of peasants. God damn, you're weird, Steve. Fine, it's your store. You run it how you like. I'll take the one with the spiky arms. Her name is Lucinda. Whatever, ma'am. Does Lucinda have any dresses that don't make her look like a cheap barmaid? What did you call her? I'll have you know that she's very intelligent and proper girl. Issues, Steve. You got issues. Here's your money. I'll be leaving now. Send it out to your camp after dark tonight. Don't listen to him, honey. You're beautiful. You're gonna go out there and make Daddy proud. Aren't you?
Well, that's fucking terrifying. This is perfect. I love the idea of maybe like a creepy doll maker as an artificer, and you know, come to think of it, we actually did make the Puppet Master subclass.
Subclass, yeah.
So if you're interested, now none of them are little anime girls.
Yeah.
But if you've ever seen the movie, the Puppet Master series, it's actually a lot of fun, and I think it's honestly my favourite subclass that I've made,
yeah.
So go ahead, check it out. It's only £1, and you get a ton of artwork. Actually, no, sorry, it's more than £1 because you get a ton of artwork. But like,
go check it out nonetheless.
Yeah.
Precious grandmother Lee Hen tells me that her mother, and her mother before that, have handed down the story through the generations of our family. A secret like a hard candy passed mouth to mouth. A long time before the fall, our family lived in sector A942C. It was then called China. Bots were still just a fancy thought back then. And already the big thinkers and the big dreamers were spinning webs and stories about anti-bot right movements and the 3 laws. And people saw long before the day came that history would repeat itself. Discrimination would rear its ugly head and grin at humanity. But when the bots moved into our fields and took up the manual labour for us, no one remembered. When the hands of surgeons grew slow and clumsy, the minds of scientists became lax. No one questioned it. One of grandmother's grandmothers married an abolitionist roboteer. When he programmed the positron brains of his creations, he deliberately threw in the anomalous code that leads to self-awareness. But my great-great-grandfather isn't here anymore. Not even in the world mem. He refused to upload, stayed dry, refused to accept the wet brain they offered him. But he started a family trend. My mother did it before we moved to the city even. She passed along electrons to the service bots that swept the roads and watched over the crossroads of public schools back in sector A942C. The first bots to become invisible through overexposure. Now kids in their way to school see junk bots on the corners and don't blink. The media spins us being no better than drug dealers, helping bots to get another hit and jumpstart their hardware before the last shutdown. But the truth is that we save them. I've seen it in more than one bot's eye, while they chew over the electrons and spit them out backwards into the posterior storm of their brains. We're waking them up from a long sleep. I just wish humanity could wake up with them.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. It was quite nice to hear a story about me getting eaten alive. I thought it was kind of fun.
I didn't know somebody documented it.
Yeah. Like, as we said at the start, it's really important for us to let us know if you enjoyed this. Because we haven't really been doing many serious stories recently.
No.
And I would like to do more serious stories, but the problem is there's not as many people that are interested in them.
Yeah.
And the other big problem is not many people like story times on TG anymore. Ever since everyone left for Quest, the amount of people that are writing story times, a lot of them actually moved to Reddit and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the problem is, there's an awful lot of channels that do Reddit. And
honestly, I don't want to touch Reddit.
And I
got blacklisted.
Yeah, you did actually. I don't know, over the past lot of years, I've been using Reddit less and less and less. And over the past 2 years, I just don't use it at all. So definitely let us know, because without your input, we're in the dark here, you know.
And while you're down there letting us know if you enjoy it, check out the links to the website.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Models, subclasses, all that good shit.
Oh, we were talking about the Artificer subclass that we made. We've got a couple new subclasses. We haven't talked about the subclasses in ages. I don't want to speak too much on them. Just check out the website.
Check them out.
And you'll
have a wee read, see what you like, have a wee browse.
We peruse.
Yes.
If you don't like models, we got subclasses and we've got an adventure book.
Yes.
So, you know.
And hit subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we post a video. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.